Buying a detached home in the highly competitive Vancouver real estate market isn't just about finding a neighborhood you love or a layout you like. It's ultimately about avoiding the properties that quietly turn into devastating money pits. With our unique coastal climate and aging housing stock, hidden structural and drainage issues are everywhere. The wrong purchase could rapidly drain your savings account and leave you stuck with a house that's incredibly hard to sell down the road. And worse, it could force you into accepting a painful fire sale years from now just to get out from under a mountain of unexpected repair bills. In this video, I'm going to go through 7 specific categories of Vancouver homes you absolutely need to think twice about before buying. We're talking about everything from hidden water traps to restrictive zoning nightmares that kill your resale value. Number 5 might genuinely surprise you, as it's a feature many first-time buyers mistakenly think is a huge bonus. I'll clearly break down how to spot these critical warning signs during a showing before you ever make an offer. And if you already own one of these problem properties, don't panic. I'll cover exactly what your best exit options look like so you can protect your equity. Let's get into it. Number 1. Homes built on peat bogs. Now, the first thing on this list isn't something most buyers even know about, and that's whether a property sits on a peat bog. Peat bog is a wetland area made up of layers of decomposing plant material, which creates soil that is soft, acidic, and unstable. And Vancouver has a surprising number of pockets built directly on this kind of terrain, particularly through the east and south sections of the city. And why does this matter so much? Because building on an old peat bog soil creates a chain of problems. The ground shifts unevenly over time, construction gets dramatically more expensive, and resales take a hit, and insurance can become harder to secure as well. On the ground stability side, uneven settling is the big issue. You'll see it show up as tilted fences, cracked stucco or brick, and doors and windows that no longer sit square in their frames. It doesn't happen all at once either. The organic material underneath keeps breaking down, so the problem tends to get worse the longer it goes unaddressed. Now, if you've walked the streets on the east side between Main and Fraser, you can actually see this in real time. Sidewalk slabs pushed up like small speed bumps and homes with a visible list of them, all because of the soft ground underneath. And if you're planning to build or do a major renovation on a peat bog lot, be prepared for a serious cost jump. Engineers often need to pile drive through the unstable soil until they hit solid bedrock. And that kind of foundation work can add anywhere from tens to thousands of dollars up to $500,000 depending on the depth and site conditions. Even homes that already had this work done typically sell for around 10 to 15% less than comparable properties on stable ground, simply because buyers see it as a red flag. And on top of that, some insurance charge higher premiums or limit what they'll cover specifically because of known foundation issues tied to the bog soil. If a home is sitting on bog soil, you can often feel a subtle slope just walking room to room. The most useful tool here is the City of Vancouver actually publishes a geological map showing where the bogs are concentrated. Pockets near Burnaby Border, Boundary Road, sections of Renfrew Park, and an area near Pender and Nanaimo, and the streets surrounding Trout Lake and John Hendry Park. There's also a stretch between Main and Fraser Street, just south of Mount St. Joseph Hospital, where you can see the same slanting sidewalks and settling homes firsthand. You know, when you're driving down the street and your car is bumping and bumping, and when it rains, you see puddles all over the street. You're in a bog. This isn't a one-off issue in a single pocket of the city. It shows up in multiple neighborhoods, even coveted ones like Douglas Park. So it's worth pulling up that map or having your realtor do so before you start touring properties around Vancouver. Number 2, and this is a big one because it's literally scattered all over the Lower Mainland. The second thing you need to watch out for is a plumbing material called polybutylene, often just called polyb. If you are house hunting, this is one detail that can absolutely make or break a deal. And if you're looking at a home built between 1978 and 1995, pay close attention. During that booming construction area, builders were looking to cut costs, and poly-B was marketed as a cheap, flexible, and easy alternative to traditional copper. It's usually a gray plastic pipe, and if you look closely, you often see it stamped with PB2110. So why is it such a massive problem? Because it's essentially a ticking time bomb. Poly-B is prone to sudden ruptures with zero warning. We aren't just talking about a slow, manageable drip under the sink. We're talking about a sudden, catastrophic microfracture that bursts open and flood your drywall and hardwood floors while you're at work. It fails on 2 fronts. First, a lot of this piping was stored outside before insulation, so harsh UV rays broke it down at a molecular level before it even went into the walls. Second, the chlorinated city water running through it actively eats it away from the inside. The result, 78% of these systems experience some kind of failure within 30 years. It's not a matter of if it will leak, it's when. Because of this extreme risk, insurance companies absolutely hate it. Many will outright deny coverage for a home with poly-B, or they'll just jack up your premiums by 30 to 50%. You might even be forced to find a higher risk specialty insurer just to get your mortgage approved, which adds a massive layer of stress to the buying process. And replacing it isn't cheap either. A full replacement can easily run into the 6 figures, but likely for a general home, to 3,000 square feet, you're probably looking at 25 grand. And remember, you aren't just paying a plumber for new pipes. You are paying a contractor to tear open your walls, patch the drywall, and repaint everything. Fortunately, modern plumbers will swap out the old system for a system called PEX. Unlike Poly B, PEX is incredibly durable, highly resistant to chlorine, and often color-coded red and blue. Because it's flexible, it snakes through the walls easily, help minimizing how much drywall actually has to be destroyed. It becomes a total financial nightmare if the home has radiant in-floor heating, because those pipes are embedded directly in the concrete. You have to either jackhammer up the entire floor to remove them or abandon the heating system entirely and install wall-mounted heat pumps or baseboard heaters, for example. And here's your final takeaway. If you're touring a home from, let's say, the 1975 to 2000 window, make Poly B a specific checklist item. Look under the sinks, near the water meter, and don't be fooled if you see copper in one room. Partial replacements are common, meaning the old Poly B could still be hiding directly behind the walls or in the floors. Number 3, the next major flag to watch out for is knob and tube wiring. And if you're house hunting for a charming old character home, this detail is really important. If the home was built anywhere from the 1880s up until the 1940s, pay close attention. This early electrical method is easily identified by single cloth covered wires anchored to a wooden framing by a white ceramic knob. And that's the most identifiable part, is that white knob you see, and routed through the joist through ceramic tubes. Knob and tubes is a severe fire hazard. This aging setup was never designed to handle modern electrical loads like big screen TVs, microwaves, and air conditioners. It critically fails on a few fronts. There's no ground wire. Electrical faults have nowhere to safely discharge, drastically increasing the risk of shocks and structural fires. Crumbling insulation. The century-old cloth cover and rubber insulation becomes incredibly brittle, flaking off and leaving bare live wires completely exposed inside your walls. Thermal hazards. It becomes an absolute nightmare if modern insulation was blown into the attic. The knob and tube was designed to dissipate heat in the open air. When smothered by insulation, that trapped heat essentially turns your walls into a toaster oven. Because of these extreme risks, insurance companies absolutely hate it, and many will outright just deny coverage altogether. Hike premiums maybe, or just demand a full replacement within 30 days of closing, adding a massive layer of stress to your purchase. A whole home rewire easily runs into the tens of thousands of dollars. Direct modern day replacement for ancient knob and tube wiring is called an NM cable, non-metallic sheathed cable, most commonly known by the popular name Romex. And rewiring a house is a significant investment. And on average, you can expect a full replacement to cost around $15,000 to up to $50,000 depending on the home size. Similar to the Poly B problem, you aren't just paying an electrician to install the new modern cable. You also hire contractors to cut channels into your lathe and plaster walls and patch the damage and repaint everything. If you're touring a pre-1950s home, make knob and tube a specific checklist item. Look at exposed joists in unfurnished basements or attics, and don't be fooled by brand new electrical panels or modern 3-prong outlets in the living room. Flippers often do partial replacements, meaning the dangerous original wiring could still be hiding right behind the plaster. Number 4, unpermitted work. Renovations, additions, or conversions completely done without proper permits from the city of Vancouver. Sellers often cut corners to save time, money, creating unauthorized basement suites, converting attics, or making uninspected structural changes. However, this leaves a costly mess for the next buyer. And the consequences here can be significant. The city actively enforces safety rules, levying fines ranging from $500 to even $10,000 per violation. In more serious cases, they can place a notice directly on the property title, which stays there until the issue is resolved and can seriously complicate future resale. Here's where it gets personal. Liability transfers to you the moment you take ownership, regardless of who did the work. If you apply for a permit to install a heat pump, the city may first require you to fix the existing unpermitted work, like an illegal extended deck. Suddenly, you're paying to correct someone else's shortcuts just to get your own project approved. And there are serious safety and insurance risks too. An unauthorized basement suite lacking proper fire separation or electrical safety is a real hazard. If a fire or flood occurs, insurers increasingly check for permits before honoring claims. And finding undocumented work can result in your coverage being denied entirely. Fixing unpermitted work after the fact typically costs 2 to 3 times more than doing it properly the first time, as contractors often must open up walls to inspect wiring and plumbing. In extreme cases, entire additions have had to be knocked down for violating zoning setbacks. Additionally, unpermitted work can knock 5 to 15% off buyer offers, and lenders may refuse to appraise that square footage. Before buying, you can spend $100 to $300 on a property information review from the city to compare official records against what's actually built. Pay close attention to basement suites, extra bathrooms, decks, the most commonly unpermitted items, since the seller disclosures aren't always complete. Number 5. The fifth category to be cautious about are homes on narrow, irregular, or laneless lots. While the lower price tag is tempting, that discount usually reflects real limitations on future value and development potential. This comes down to floor space ratio, or FSR, which caps how much building area is allowed relative to the lot size. In most Vancouver single-family zones, FSR is around 0.6, meaning on a 4,000 square foot lot, it supports roughly a 2,400 square foot home. A smaller or oddly shaped lot shrinks that number further, limiting what you can build on it and how much the property will appreciate. Narrow lots restrict floor plan options due to setbacks and often create awkward interior layouts. If the lot is under 33 feet wide with no lane access, you typically lose the ability to build a laneway house, cutting off a crucial rental income opportunity. Construction on these tight lots tend to run about 15 to 25% more expensive as builders require custom solutions to make the space work. Vancouver zoning is complex. While many neighborhoods have standard 33 to 50 foot lots, pockets of East Vancouver and Kitsilano feature 25 to 30 foot lots. The city also updated zoning bylaws in 2023 affecting redevelopment lots under 33 feet. So it's important to verify current rules rather than rely on outdated assumptions. Finally, some older homes were built larger than current FSR rules allow. If torn down, the replacement must legally be smaller, which quietly caps future value. Renovating these homes is often the smarter play to preserve that grandfathered footprint. Before buying, get a zoning assessment through your agent or the city's planning department so you know exactly what is allowed. 6 on the list, and often catching buyers off guard: asbestos. We've all heard about it. If you're looking at almost anything built before 1990 in Vancouver, there's a strong chance it contains asbestos. Roughly 75% of these older homes contain the fibrous mineral, which was widely used for decades due to its fire resistance, durability, and insulating properties. You'll typically find it in predictable spots: popcorn ceilings from the 1950s through the 80s, older 9-inch vinyl floor tiles, insulation wrapped around heating and pipes and boilers, certain exterior siding as well from the 1940s to 1970s, drywall joint compound, older plaster and vermiculite attic insulation, and the health risks are very well documented, including lung cancer. Consequently, Vancouver now has some of the strictest asbestos regulations in Canada. A hazardous materials survey is a mandatory before the city will issue renovation or development permits on pre-1990 buildings. Any removal must be handled by a certified abatement contractor with WorkSafe BC, requiring at least 48 hours notice. Full remediation easily runs into the tens of thousands of dollars, averaging around $25,000. Crucially, asbestos is only dangerous once disturbed and its fibers become airborne. If you suspect a home might contain it, never drill, sand, or disturb those materials yourself. I definitely recommend, if you are buying a home pre-1990, to pay for a test if you're concerned about asbestos. They range around $250 to $500, which is a small price compared to an unexpected $25,000 remediation bill or risking your family's health. The 7th and final category involves homes with underground oil storage tanks, a remnant from the era before natural gas heating became the standard. When buying an older home, it's essential to discover if a tank has ever been installed and whether its subsequent removal was properly certified. Homes between the 1920s and the 1960s are the most likely to have one. This is especially true in established neighborhoods like Kitts, Kerrisdale, Dunbar, and pockets of East Vancouver. And the risks are substantial. A leaking tank can easily contain surrounding soil and groundwater, potentially spreading to the neighboring lots and affecting them as well. Cleanup costs can vary enormously, varying from $10,000 up to a couple $100,000 depending on the extensive soil remediation needed. Additionally, some insurance providers refuse to cover properties with known tanks. Health is also a direct concern, as degrading tanks can leak petroleum vapors into basements through cracks. And historically, decommissioned tanks were drained and filled with sand. Today, the city requires full removal. If a property lacks a scan certificate from this era, it is well worth spending a few $100s for a professional oil tank scan just for peace of mind. If the result is clean, keep the certificate for when you eventually sell. And during a walkthrough, watch for warning signs: unexplained patches of dead grass, a faint petroleum smell in the yard or basement, old fill or vent pipes, unusual landscaping depressions. Crucially, under BC Environmental Management Act, contamination liability follows the current owner. Even if a tank leaks for decades before your purchase, you could be on the hook for remediation costs exceeding $250,000. Even if you had no idea it existed, the severe hidden risk is exactly why a proper scan is well worth the modest upfront cost. That covers the 7 categories of Vancouver detached homes worth thinking twice about. Peat bog lots, poly B plumbing, knob and tube wiring, unpermitted renovations, undersized laneless lots, pre-1990 homes with asbestos, and properties with a history of underground oil tanks. None of these should automatically take a home off your list, but each one deserves real due diligence before you commit, because the cost of skipping that can run into the tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road. Not sure if now is the actual right time to buy or if you're better off waiting. I go through that whole decision in my video, should you buy a home now or wait in Vancouver? It's the natural next step in this one, so go check it out. Thank you.